is Helena Nascimento, and today I will be doing an analysis of Act 1, Scene 2, with the scene between Rachel, Drummond, and Kate of Inherit the Wind. So, I believe that this passage suggests that Drummond has specific values and beliefs, and that they affect his character as a whole, and the 4 points that I will be explaining to prove this are the use of stage direction, the second half in which he explains his reasoning, the third point would be the use of empathy and the fact that he doesn't quit even though he has experienced things like this before in bad ways, and the fourth point being the answers that he gives to Rachel throughout the passage. So, for the first point, it's the use of stage directions. The first time in which stage direction is used in the passage is during Drummond's second line, where it tells him to speak quietly. This shows the difference between him and Brady, and that he chooses to add emphasis by being quiet, and that he isn't a person that loves being loud. The next point in which he also uses stage direction is when the author tells him to say, he spades his hands in his hip pockets. This is right before he begins to explain his viewpoint on Kate's story, the way that he felt, that the fact that he has felt the exact same way before. The story kind of works in an arc. By the story I mean this passage. It begins in a very superficial way, in which he's simply answering Rachel by, I care a great deal about Bert, I care a great deal about what he thinks. It doesn't really tell him how to act, like the author doesn't give him specific stage directions. It's very shallow, it's very superficial. He doesn't even have proper punctuation that would add emphasis to his speech. And then slowly throughout the passage, he starts speaking quietly. And then he puts his hands in his hip pockets because he's starting to digress from the idea that she was saying before, which I care about what the people in this town think of him. He starts digressing into his own story, and it's kind of like it's replaying in his mind. So the next point of stage direction is when he takes a deep breath and then turns abruptly. This shows the end of the digression that he had with his own experience that he had probably had in the case he had before in Chicago. And it proves that he truly felt what he was saying. He takes a deep breath to stop his mind from going too far, to get back to the main point. And it basically shows that Drummond is... Sorry. It shows the building of Drummond's character and how he understands things to a certain extent and how he doesn't say things for no reason. And that I will explain in the second point, which is the second half of the passage in which he basically states that he is here for a reason. So, at the end of his third line, Drummond says, if you honestly believe, twice. That is an anaphora, and it is used to give emphasis. It shows that he doesn't do things that he doesn't believe in. It shows that he actually thinks that Kate is right. It shows that Drummond's character is very sure of himself, and that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't. Kate's is the only reason why he's doing it. He says then the hell with it. I'll pack my grip and go back to Chicago where it's a cool 100 in the shade. This also shows that he's here for a reason, because he would have not accepted this case if he wasn't there to help Kate, if he wasn't there because he actually believed in it. This suggests that Drummond is not a character that is not a type of lawyer that just looks for things for publicity. He's not there for the popularity, for the fame he will gain from this case. Although he knew that he would get it, he is there because he believes that Kate suffered an injustice. At his last line, he also says, "I'm here, that tells you what I think." Again, that is because Drummond does things for his clients. He doesn't believe that what he is doing is wrong. It suggests that he has strong beliefs and that he understands exactly what Kate is feeling. So my third point would be the use of empathy and him not quitting, although he had an opportunity to, because he has suffered the same thing previously. So the first example of this is Drummond's first line in the text, in which he says, "I care a great deal about Bert. I care a great deal about what Bert thinks." This, as I said previously, is slightly like a passage arc. Not really a story arc, but a passage arc, because this is in a shorter version. It's, again, very superficial. It doesn't tell much, but it paves the way for the rest of the passage to begin. The next part that he shows empathy is, I know what it feels like, when he says that in his third line. Empathy is basically when you understand how someone is feeling. So I know what it feels like is pretty much empathy. It relies on the understanding of a peer's feelings. Another idea that shows empathy in his speech is the hyphen between the words world and to. That gives an idea that he is falling into depth in his speech, and that he's replaying the moment in his head, and that it basically shows that he understands what Kate feels by saying this. The reason why this suggests Drummond's values and his beliefs is because he didn't quit on Kate's, although he already felt the same way, that he knew how Kate's felt, that it wasn't pleasant. He didn't quit. It shows again, like my previous point, that Drummond does things for a reason. He doesn't do things just because. He doesn't do things for fame, for publicity. He wouldn't have gone back to feeling the same way that he did before if he didn't actually believe in it, because he himself says that he suffered pretty greatly throughout the previous experience he had in a similar way. Now, my last point is the answers that Drummond gives to Rachel. Drummond's answers to Rachel do not require much thinking of him. He knows exactly why he's there. So, for example, you don't care anything about Bert. You just want a chance to make speeches against the Bible. And then Drummond says, "I care a great deal about Bert. I care a great deal about what Bert thinks." He says it in an assertive manner. He says it as if he's sure, because he knows that he's there for a reason. And he doesn't give an explanation because he doesn't feel he needs any. Later, he also says, "Can you buy back his respectability by making him a coward?" He argues against Rachel. He knows what arguments to give because he is there for Kate. He knows why Kate isn't wrong. he believes Kate's is right. And then lastly, he answers Rachel, don't prompt the witness. He doesn't really want to listen to her because he knows that what she's saying doesn't really matter to him. Because he knows exactly what he believes and he doesn't really care about her perspective because he knows that he's right. So, in general, I believe that these 4 points of stage direction, reasoning, empathy, and answering create a good idea of Drummond's beliefs and values and why he and who he is.